chat. um, and can we say where you're sheltering in place? Do you want to say that? Okay, okay. Some people have been like, don't say where I am. I'm like, okay. So,
Oh no, that's fine.
okay, good, good. Because I think you get the record. We were talking to somebody from the West End from Six and Beautiful this morning, but you may get the record for being the furthest.
Furthest away possible.
The furthest away. I said we were going global this week with these interviews, so now I'm feeling it. um, and we are live. So I'm so excited to welcome everybody on Facebook. I'm Lauren Van Hemert from RDU on Stage. And I am here with this lovely person who's in one of my favorite shows. I should have asked you this. I keep saying Shereen, but how do you pronounce your first name?
Shereen. Yep, Shereen Ahmed.
Shereen, okay. So I'm here with Shereen Ahmed, who is Eliza Doolittle on the national tour of the Lincoln Center. I'm going to say the Lincoln Center Theater production of My Fair Lady because it is glorious. It was supposed to play the Durham Performing Arts Center this month, and they've announced that I'm going to just say it might come next year. There's information about it on their website, so you can Google it, go to the website and see when the rescheduled dates are. And I'm so excited to talk about this show because I love this show so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start. We were talking a minute ago about the movie, and I had read in an article that you had watched the movie. It was kind of a go-to for your family for family movie night. So do you remember the first time you saw the movie?
I remember it as clear as yesterday. I think I was 12, and I remember just being so captured by Audrey Hepburn and by the music, like the sweeping orchestrations of Lerner and Lowe, and the dialect and how she went from this street rat to this princess and this independent, beautiful woman. It was just so thrilling for me. And these incredible costumes that she was able to wear, and they've become incredibly iconic. I remember exactly, like right after I watched I Could Have Danced All Night, I paused the movie and I ran upstairs and I just like danced around my room and twirled and pretended that I had maids, and it was just like it was my first theater experience, I like to say. So it was it was a really special movie for me.
And do you watch a movie like that as a kid? Because I know you or I read at least that you liked to sing and dance when you were a kid. Do you see a movie like that and say, oh, I'd like to play that role someday? Does that even occur to you, or you just are soaking it in?
Yes, 100%. My entire life, Eliza Doolittle has been the role for me, the dream role. And it's because the script is there's so much to dig and so many layers to it that it's exciting for me as an actor to be able to perform. But it's also, the themes are really important, I think, for women, especially for young women. That I was 12 when I watched it, and I realized this is a storyline that doesn't really have to do with her romantic life. It's about her breaking boundaries and breaking class systems and trying to discover these parts of herself and bettering herself. It was like, I want to tell that story. So 100%, it was always part of my dream.
Well, and what I found interesting about this revival, and maybe because I was revisiting it as an adult, because I had seen the show once before when it went on tour when I don't know that I was a kid, but Rex Harrison was in the tour for a while, years and years and years ago. And we had seen it with him. And what struck me about the Lincoln Center Theater production is how truly independent and empowered Eliza Doolittle is as a character. And in that production, I felt that the Henry Higgins character, they really, the arc of his character really shows the madness of him, which I had not really seen in other productions. And I was like, I get it now. He's a little bit crazy.
The most, we were so lucky to have a director like Bart Shear take this on. He's done King and I, he's done South Pacific, and he's just revived them so beautifully. And My Fair Lady, it's based off of Pygmalion, a
Mhm.
Bernard Shaw play, and I think he's so good at just serving for the audience, the just the ground and creating the foundation for the audience to just to interpret how they want instead of us, I guess, trying to inform them and make their opinions for themselves, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. So
Abs-
we're able to serve for the audience to make their own opinions about the show. And yeah, I would agree with you. Watching the movie and then watching or being a part of this revival has really opened up my eyes to all of the really deep themes that run through this show. I mean, classism, sexism, um, and how do these two people from completely different worlds work together to create a new life for this woman? And really, I like to think of her as she's like the motor. She's like the motor of a car, and she's running this thing. And if it wasn't
mhm.
for her ambition, this
Mhm.
experiment would have never happened. I mean, can you imagine just like walking up to a random man's home and saying, "Hey, I want lessons. I'm here to better my life." That takes incredible courage. Um, so she's inspired me. She inspired me also from the film in the 60s, but this revival specifically, I think, just highlights her courage and her ambition, and that it is her story, and we follow her throughout the show instead of really the view from Higgins as it has before. It's Eliza's story now, so it's revived for this time.
Well, and I think that's a testament to the director because so many classic musicals, so many old musicals, like Carousel, let's take Carousel for an example, are kind of problematic when they play now, as beautiful as they are, as beautiful as the music is. And I love Carousel, so don't come writing me hate mail about Carousel. But they are a little problematic in this day and age. And I think because Bartlett Shear has done these beautiful interpretations of The King and I, because The King and I is another kind of historically problematic musical. But when I saw the revival of it on tour, I got the sense that this was really an empowered woman. I didn't feel that it was, and even the ladies in waiting in the palace, they were empowered women. They were affecting change in their own way. And so I was very moved by his interpretation of these classics.
Something he told me while we were in rehearsals is never ever ever judge your character's choices. And we have to remember that My Fair Lady is set in London in the early 1900s. So her choices are very different than our choices today. And the whole point of reviving a show like this is to just serve that, and then you can walk away and we can start discussions and have conversations about this. It's really beautiful when I'm leaving the stage door and I'm hearing couples or families or just friends having conversations about gender politics and about transcending class and about this new revival. It's beautiful, and that's the whole point of theater, right? To
Mhm.
fuel conversations.
And to see a new generation. When I went to a matinee of My Fair Lady on a Sunday in New York a couple of years ago. and there were so many kids in the audience. And I thought, I don't know if this is their first theatrical experience, but this certainly sets the bar pretty high for and it was just glorious because it is multi-generational. You can take your families to see it. There's nothing in it that's offensive or questionable. It could be as family friendly as you want it to be. And that's what I love about these old musicals.
There's so much nostalgia around this musical, which is really exciting for me because I see families and I see young women and young boys and people of all ages and all different backgrounds coming to see the show because it truly transcends generations, transcends cultures. And I think, you know, being able to sit in the audience and watch a show all about ambition and bettering your life, that can resonate with everyone. And so it's truly inspiring, especially this revival. And I feel I am so full of gratitude to be able to take this across the country, and hear the different reactions depending on where I am in the country. It's also so informative for me. It's like I never stop creating, I never stop becoming inspired because I believe that there's always a dialogue, constant dialogue between the audience and the performer.
Mm.
And John Lithgow has this beautiful quote. He says, actors are carnivores of silence. And I resonate with that quote so much. It's like, you know, if you're reacting to something that I didn't necessarily think of, I get to turn a new corner and explore that with you. So I am just full of gratitude that I get to be able to portray this role and be in the show and be able to take it across the country and learn every day.
I love that. Well, and you are the first actress of Arab Muslim descent to star as Eliza Doolittle. How does your family's heritage inform how you approach this role? Because I feel like your interpretation, and just as any performer's interpretation of this, is going to be different than those who've come before you or those who come after you. So how has your heritage kind of brought meaning to this role for you and helped you interpret this role?
So I think the interpretations of the show is endless because the writing is just that good. But I know what I bring to the role. My race, my ethnicity, it doesn't inform my Eliza. What is really exciting about the show is that her race and ethnicity is never brought up ever in stage directions, in character descriptions, in the script. So it's like possibilities are endless for who can portray these roles. And as an actress, it's freeing. I think for so long I've been in this box and I've been placed in this box of like, you can only be in Aladdin. You can only be in a band's visit. You can only be in these stereotypical roles. And those are not necessarily the narratives that I constantly want to portray because, I mean, as much as I connect with it, we are all humans. We come from we have different stories to tell. We're not kept to this one singular narrative of I am an Arabic woman and that's it, you know? So to be able to be free of that and to step into such an iconic revival like My Fair Lady, it's freeing. But what I do know is that my experience of I guess walking in this world, feeling stereotyped and put in this box is something that I resonate so much with Eliza. Her class, her dialect has already chosen her path. Nothing, I mean, it's all about the dialect in My Fair Lady, right? If you change the power of speech is there's so much power in that if you are able to change that, you can transcend class. That's incredible. And that is an amazing theory and hypothesis that is actually proven true. And, you know, her ambition and her courage to break that, I resonate with 100%. So I feel that my experiences definitely fuel my Eliza, but my race and ethnicity does not. And so it's like, it's so fun to explore and to bring that with me, to bring that experience with me.
I I I I think so. And it's an interesting, I think when it's funny, a few interviews I've done, we've had conversations about color conscious casting, color blind casting, what that means, when you do it with intention, when you do it just to check a box. Um, but what I've seen when I've seen casting decisions that are intentional and purposeful, and it's not stereotypical, it goes totally against type, total, I get very excited because for me it changes the narrative a little bit for the better. So how does casting a American Muslim woman in this role change the narrative of My Fair Lady? Does it contemporize it a little bit? Does it make it more relevant? Does it speak to questions of classism that we're seeing now in our society? How does it change the narrative?
say I'd say the only way that it really changes the narrative is that it expands the audience and
Mm.
it expands our conception of, or our perception of, race and ethnicity on the stage. I think what's so beautiful and important about representation in the theater is that when you have representation in the theater, you have representation of all different cultures, you have diversity in ideas, you have diversity in voice and the power of speech and um, all of these experiences that come with it, you can put onto the stage. And whether that's vocalized or physicalized or not, there is someone out there that can look on that stage and resonate even more with the story and with the show and with the character. So regardless if I was you know, of any background, at least I know that there is someone out there that can resonate with me and say I can also chase that dream, and I can also be in such an iconic musical that has always been portrayed one way, and
Mhm.
be able to break that. And you know, it's funny because I didn't realize when I was offered the understudy that I would be the first. I didn't realize that. I mean, I thought, you know, 2019, okay, obviously it's happened before. And it broke my heart when I found out it actually hasn't. This show has been around since early 1900s and it's never happened before in a major production. And so at first, you know, it felt like this massive amount of pressure. It was like, who am I to hold this torch? You know, why am I almost felt this like imposter syndrome, but then I realized, hold on, wait, Shereen, it's not about you. It's about who comes after you.
Mm.
I hope that after me, you know, breaking that barrier, we'll see a Latina Eliza, there will be an Asian Eliza, or there'll be a Latin Higgins,
Mhm.
or, you know, there are endless possibilities, but now it's possible because it's happened and it's
And it's possible for those little girls sitting in the audience who don't want to be Jasmine or don't want to be in the band's visit. And not that those are not good shows. They're good shows. Again,
yeah,
don't come at me with the okay, love Aladdin, didn't love the band's visit, but that's a story for another day. And I'll tell you why I didn't love the band's visit. This is exactly why I didn't love the band's visit. That day, I had seen two shows because I don't go to New York that often. And so I had seen My Fair Lady in the afternoon, and it's this glorious, it is everything you want a Broadway production to be. It's got good story, good music, gorgeous costumes, sets that you can't even believe. If you think the turntable in Hamilton is impressive, wait till you see Henry Higgins' house turn around and they're walking.
By the way, we made that happen on tour,
Oh
so
my
get
gosh.
excited.
Yeah, they're walking in a circle around the rooms of the house singing. It's an incredible visual. And so I saw this glorious production, and then that night I saw the band's visit. And I was on such a high from My Fair Lady. And the band's visit is such an understated show that nothing could have competed with My Fair Lady after I was like, I shouldn't have seen it the same day. I have to see the band's visit again, independent of My Fair Lady. So, but I love the fact that little girls, little boys can come and see you in this production, and it's not the stereotypical Arabian Nights role. It's just a classic musical with a fresh face, with a new face. I love that.
Exactly, exactly. And I've gotten such beautiful letters from women in India, from men in Egypt, from all of these aspiring actors, and some of them aren't, they just want to break into an industry that they feel doesn't represent them. And it's so beautiful, and it's so inspiring, the things that these people have written me. And it made me realize that, you know, as much as I'm doing the work, right? But it's much bigger than me. It's about all of the people who come after me, and opening that door for more representation in the theater, because it's that important.
It's very important, and I hope we continue. It seems like the dial is beginning to move a little bit on Broadway, and in regional productions we see it a lot. I see a lot of regional productions where I am um, making really great casting decisions that are so beautiful and interesting and really do show representation on stage. So I'm really excited about that. But I think in Broadway, we're starting to see that dial move a little bit, I hope. Did your dad, so I know we talked about family movie night and you guys watching this in your house as you were 12 years old growing up. So did your family get to see you on Broadway when you were understudying or on tour?
Yes, so they came to my debut as Eliza on Broadway, and that was so special. I had done so much work up until that point that I was able to let go and just be completely 100% present. Sometimes I thought I was going to have one of those moments of like, I don't really know what happened on stage. I kind of blacked out. But I have to be completely honest. I remember every moment. And what I remember so vividly is that I had this opportunity of either just letting my close friends and family know that my debut date, or letting the world know, and whatever comes of it comes. And I remember just feeling completely cradled in support by the audience. And when I saw my parents afterwards, it was so beautiful. And so I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and we opened the tour at the Kennedy Center in DC. So that's only like 45 minutes away. So they came like 4 or 5 times. It was so beautiful. I love them for that.
Oh, gotta love the parents for coming
Yeah.
and supporting. um,
Thanks.
and you understudied the glorious Laura Benanti. And I know this was a dream role for her, but Am I wrong? Was this your first Broadway show? Because I'm feeling like this was your first, this was your Broadway debut, right?
This was my Broadway debut, and I didn't understudy the role until Laura came on. And I have to say, she didn't have to do this, but probably met 3 or 4 times over a span of a couple of hours to just sit and talk and connect over the role. And she would tell me everything from, hey, this stool that you stand on is a little bit iffy, be careful, to how do you feel about this scene? I play it this way. What is your interpretation? And like, feel free to run with it. And there was never any unsolicited advice. It was always, she's like, take what you feel is valuable, but create your own Eliza. And she helped me in that realm, and then she also helped me, in the a personal realm of like, she she was also someone who approached me and said, what you're doing is, you're the first, and there's going to be a lot of pressure. And she's like, she took me under her wing and she said, this is how you deal with this. When press comes to you for this, this is how you deal with that. And it was like, she didn't have to do this, and she completely mentored me. And it was like, I am so thankful that I had someone like her in my life at that point, um, to help me, because it only helped me in the future when I was offered the role full time on tour. Um, she was just an angel, wonderful to work with.
Has the show changed between that link? I hope it hasn't too much. Has the show changed between that Lincoln Center production and the tour?
I'd say what is so special about Bart is that he directs the people in the room, and he finds what is unique about each person and brings out those qualities. So the intention is completely the same. We have the same director, we have the same music director, we have the same set designer and costume designer, all working on the tour. So the intention, everything is completely intact. And like I said, that massive house, yeah, you're going to see that on tour too. Um, but I think, there are these just like slight shifts for each person, because for me to replicate Laura's show would do the story injustice, right? Um, but the intention is still the same. The choreography is still the same. Um, you're gonna see My Fair Lady, the Lincoln Center's production of My Fair Lady. It's all there.
And I'm telling you, if you're not a season ticket holder to Deepak, if and when it comes next year, you just got to get tickets. It's glorious. Let's talk about the costumes. If you thought the costumes in the movie were beautiful, the costumes in this show are gorgeous. I may kind of hack some photos and try to find some production photos from the show, from the touring production, to show people how gorgeous these costumes are. But talk about these costumes. How many costume changes do you have? Eliza changes her clothes a lot once she gets to Henry Higgins' house.
So if I'm not on stage, I'm changing into these glorious costumes, but they're all vintage. These are vintage pieces, so they have to be very carefully put on, and they take time. So I have 12 changes, all of them, most of them quick changes. I think for two are quick changes. Um, there's that, I don't know if you remember the revolving house, and she changes. I think I changed 4 times within like 2 minutes. Um, that is such a fun sequence. I mean, it's exhausting, but it's so fulfilling once I get through it, you know. Um, but I remember when I was an ensemble member, Kathy Zuber, costume designer, she won a Tony for these costumes, by the way. They're just incredible. She would come around to each person and like look at our silhouette and our personality and our face shapes. And she's like, no, that hat's not going to work. And then it would come out with this beautiful, massive hat with these incredible feathers. It was just like her eye and her vision isn't insane. And we have the same costumes from Broadway that we're bringing on tour. So there's no lack of, um, you're going to see the same production that was on Broadway here. Um, but what I find so fun is that it's just slightly different from the movie, the costumes. I don't know if you remember, but Ask It is just slightly different. And it brings such a beautiful quality. I don't know how Kathy has such an eye, but she brings character to each person on stage. Each ensemble member has a different design. Nothing looks similar to each other. So when I get to put on those costumes, even my street rat Eliza is glorious.
Oh yeah, it is. Well, and I do you have a favorite costume? What I love about the costumes is it's almost like a nod to the movie, but it's not a copy.
Mm.
It's you can see where the movie inspiration's kind of in there a little bit because you recognize the costumes, but then you look at them and it's not just a ripoff. It's
Right.
not. But do you have a favorite gown?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I think that, I mean, Ask It is so fun. I mean, that hat and just how incredible and massive that costume is. It's quite heavy too. Um that I get to walk around in that. It's so fun. The ball gown is glorious, absolutely glorious. But I have to say I'm an empath, so when I look at a costume, I think of the emotion of the scene and what happens in that scene. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I think the last costume that she wears is my favorite. And if you come to see the show, you'll see why. But it's just so symbolic for me.
Mm. Do you have a favorite moment in the show? Well, you're on stage for almost the entire show. So I was going to say either to watch from the wings or to perform in, but you're on stage so much. So, favorite moment?
Can I choose two?
Okay. We won't hold it against you. I have like 150 in the show. So,
So my first favorite moment is definitely when I enter the stage.
mm,
It's like the possibilities are endless, and it's so exciting to start to kick off the show. And if you've seen it before, I enter and there's a moment where I take in the audience, and that is that moment of connection for me, that I
mm.
get to say, here we are, join us. That is so special. That will always be one of my favorite moments. Um, and then from an actor's, like a performer's point of view, I think the conservatory scene, the last scene between Higgins and Eliza, where they're kind of negotiating these terms of like, so what are we? How do we move forward in this relationship, friendship? What is this? And it's so layered, and it's never the same every night because the the script is just, like I said, the possibilities are endless there. So to be able to work off of layered, and we're working off of each other, and it's so fun. That scene, although it's one of the hardest scenes to get through because it is so emotionally taxing, it
Mm.
is the most fulfilling.
Well, and what's interesting about this production and the revival of The King and I is that the emphasis is not really on any kind of love story or implied love story between these two characters. I really felt watching this production and the revival of The King and I that this was this was all about the girl power. This is Eliza's story, and you are really following her journey. Just like in the revival of The King and I, you're really following the Anna's story. You're not it's not about any kind of weird implied relationship. Do you feel that way too as you're approaching it? Because I just feel like it's all about her. It's all about her transformation.
You know, I do. I do. I would agree with that. However, Higgins goes through an incredible transformation as
Mhm.
well. And so does Eliza. And I think those transformations couldn't happen without each other.
Mhm.
Their their relationship is incredibly complicated. And I like to think of it as like almost like a modern relationship. It's they want more out of this relationship. It's not about romance.
Mhm.
It's about respect. They respect each other on such an intimate level that I don't think I would ever I my at least from my point of view, I could never see them embracing. Like that's just not their kind of relationship.
Mhm.
They just have an incredible amount of respect for each other, and it's like an intellectual romance almost. And
Yes.
and that just elevates it that much more. Um and when we keep it there, then the real themes that we want to highlight about class and her choices or her lack of choices and gender politics, then that all comes to fruition and we can serve that better to the audience. Because once you start romanticizing it and playing on that, when there's not too much to romanticize anyway, especially in the script, it's like the whole point of the show gets lost, right? But you know, like I said, possibilities are endless in this show. And um it's up to the audience to decide what is that relationship, you know. And that's a fun area to discuss always.
Yeah. That's well, and everybody brings something else, their own experience to it, which is what I love about live theater. You wrote a beautiful article for the ensemblist. I'll post a link to it when I post this video after we're done. But you talk about how growing up Muslim in and Egyptian in a post 9/11 world was hard and that discrimination became the norm. I feel like post 9/11 and the hate and discrimination and targeting we saw then kind of mirrors what we're going through now with this pandemic. And I feel like when people are afraid, they're looking for a scapegoat. And so often that translates into hate speak, which makes me crazy. So, as a person um, who grew up Muslim from a family, with an Egyptian background, what are the parallels that you're seeing between 9/11 and now from that standpoint?
um I'd 100% agree with you that I think people are trying to find a scapegoat. And I know that from my experiences as a child trying to navigate that new world, because it was a new world, and we have to realize that what we're going to emerge into is a new world. And it's almost like how people refer to, remember before 9/11, we're going to be referring to remember before the pandemic. How I mean, we don't know what's going to happen and how we're going to emerge from this. How are we going to socialize and interact with each other? It's all going to be completely new, and there are going to be growing pains in that. But I think what's so important is to have compassion for others. This is an incredibly anxiety inducing, stressful time for people, and everyone deals with it in a different way. But we need to find compassion and extend empathy towards each other, because without that, that's where hate speech and discrimination can fester, because we don't come together. So for my I would say my Asian brothers and sisters that are suffering from discrimination right now, like I stand in solidarity with you. And I know that my experience is very different from yours, but I think everyone in this world, regardless of race, class, gender, has experienced that feeling of otherness. And if we can extend that empathy that we have all walked in each other's shoes before, hopefully we can come to this place of solidarity.
Hopefully. And for kids watching, or for young people watching, because I do have a lot of young followers, as they're navigating, you know, as our young people are looking to you as a role model, especially the young ones who are Asian Americans or of Asian descent, who are watching this unfold, this kind of new world around them, and maybe they're scared or angry or confused by what's going on right now. What kind of advice would you have for them, having gone through what you went through as a young person post 9/11?
I'd say looking back on my experiences, something that I really pride myself on, as hard as it was always operating from a place of kindness.
Mm.
And regardless, yeah, I've been in situations where we were reserved or denied service at restaurants, or there would be a slur thrown at me and my family. Like, I have experienced that before, but operating from a place of kindness just almost minimizes that hate. And it doesn't let it fester. So if you can find a way of trying to always operate from a place of kindness, and to use that to the best of your ability to spread that amongst your friends, your family, your coworkers, I mean, it's contagious. I think kindness is completely contagious. A smile is contagious. And if we just keep that going, then one day it will catch on. Always extending empathy, always operating from a place of compassion as well, in everything that you do. It also minimizes these stereotypes that can be formed about you, because we are more than our race and our ethnicity and our gender. We're more than that. So use that as your superpower.
I love that. And will there be a heightened significance for you stepping back into the role post pandemic? Because I think, from what I'm hearing, this show has not been canceled. There's been some tours that are canceled, Bandstand, Color Purple, and we've spoken to folks from those tours that have been shut down and canceled. But my hope, and from what I'm seeing at the moment, because everything changes day by day, this tour is going to continue. So post pandemic, is there an increased significance for you in playing this part, in performing this show?
100%. I think I've always come from a place of gratitude, but to know that I have friends who don't have the stage to return to at the moment, or had their last and final show taken from them, it, like, the grief is immense, and you create this relationship with your character. I miss Eliza so much. So, I think about her constantly. I run through the scenes, and I think of all these new ways now that I've had space from it. It's almost like I've gained even more clarity, and I cannot wait to return to audiences, to return to that stage, and to be, now I've always been present, but to be present in a completely different way. And I don't know how to vocalize that, but it's going to be really special. And especially now, you know, we can't connect. This is the only way that we can connect. To be in a room with people in real life, in real time, and to connect that way, it's going to be one of the most special moments of my life. Because through connection, we thrive. I mean, what would we have done without Skype, without Zoom, without FaceTime? And that's what makes live theater, especially, that so unique. You can't recreate those moments. You know, we can only connect so much over Zoom, but when you're in a room with each other and we're all experiencing one moment together, it's incredibly special. So I'm really excited to, hopefully sooner rather than later, return to audiences.
What can we learn from Eliza as we're all sheltering in place and thinking about, well, I'll only speak for myself. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection on who am I and what am I doing? So what can we learn from Eliza as we navigate this kind of tough time?
I'd say above all, hope. She came from nothing, absolutely nothing. She was a flower girl. I like to believe that she didn't have a home to go to. She didn't have parents that looked after her, but she found a way to persevere despite all of the circumstances against her. And within that, there's this lovely and beautiful moment with her father, the last scene with her father, where he pretty much says, this is going to be the last time we see each other, and I'm okay with that. And she still extends that little bit of compassion and love and extends him a flower. And despite the circumstance, despite how disconnected some people feel, she finds ways of connecting. So I know that I learn from her 8 times a week. And I hope that when we return, her story can inspire audiences.
Well, I believe it will. And like I said, this is such a glorious production, which is why I wanted to reach out and talk to you about it, because I love this show so much, especially this production of it. And I'll tell people you get the award for the furthest person that I've spoken to. Thank goodness for Zoom and Skype, because you are sheltering in place in New Zealand. What time is it in New Zealand? I don't even know. I was like, oh, she wants to talk to me at 7 o'clock on Saturday night. That's awesome. What time is it there?
8 on Sunday.
Oh my
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to the future. Wow. Well, please stay safe and healthy. And I cannot wait to see this show again. I'll find production photos and post them for you guys so you can get a taste of the costumes and sets and gloriousness of this production. But thank you so much for spending time with me tonight, tomorrow.
So much. I'm so thankful to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. And I will see you next year when you come to Durham, I hope. For those of you who joined late, this entire interview will live on Facebook, so you can watch it from its entirety as soon as we log off, and I'll be putting it on the website. Tomorrow night, just a quick programming note, this is terrifying, but Jesse Gephardt will be interviewing me. I will be in the hot seat. I don't do too many interviews. I'm usually doing the interviews, but tomorrow it's my turn. So tune in for that. And thank you again, Shereen. I'm going to go watch My Fair Lady with my daughter tonight. I told you that. She's never seen it. So I think tonight's the night.
Enjoy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and stay safe. Stay safe and healthy, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye, Shereen.
Bye.